oh, kids, Gen Alpha and everyone, oh, AI is for them. No, AI is for everyone.
And that's the beauty of AI is I truly believe it is going to be the common denominator that allows us to raise the floor and blow the ceiling off what is possible when it comes to educating people.
Welcome to The Future Of, a podcast by Fresh Consulting, where we discuss and learn about the future of different industries, markets, and technology verticals. Together, we'll chat with leaders and experts in the field and discuss how we can shape the future human experience. I'm your host, Jeff Dance. In this episode of The Future Of, we're joined by Ursula Saldívar, Director of Innovation and Emerging Technologies at Tecnológico de Monterrey. I'm going to refer to that as LTech going forward, and Mackenzie Price, co-founder of 2 Hour Learning and Alpha, to talk about the future of AI in education. I'm going to start with a brief intro, but welcome, you two. Grateful to have you. So Mackenzie Price is a pioneer with the future of education. He actually has her own podcast on the future of education, so we're really grateful to have her. And specifically as it relates to AI with her innovative AI-powered school, her future of education movement has garnered over 100 million social media views. She's had appearances on Dr. Phil, The Today Show, has been featured in Forbes, USA Today. Through her podcast and platform, she's leading a nationwide conversation about kind of reimagining education for the digital age. She earned a psychology degree from Stanford. Again, is the co-founder of 2 Hour Learning and Alpha and serves as the Forbes Technology Council member. So excited to have you, Mackenzie, kind of get your insights and the fact that you're so deep in this kind of reimagining topic, specifically with AI. Ursula, well, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say I do feel a little bad for making you read that bio, whoever gave that to you, because I think the biggest thing it's missing is we help our students learn more than twice as fast as kids in a traditional classroom in only 2 hours a day, and our kids love school, and that's really what it's all about. So blah, 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 all the other stuff, like we're helping kids like crush academics and love school, which is exciting.
That is exciting. Having 4 kids myself, I'm like super eager to go deeper. Thank you. Ursula Saldívar is a clinical psychologist. She has a master's in education. She's also an art therapist and a professor, and she leads MOSLA at LTech, which, if you don't know LTech, it was founded in 1943. It's a private, nonprofit educational institution committed to the quality of higher education. It's one of the largest institutions in Latin America. It's in Monterrey, Mexico, and I think of them like as the MIT of Mexico. But she considers herself passionate about art as well. She's a traveler. She likes the intersection of social, technology, work, and art. And so I think that soft side of your background and kind of the hard side of technology is really interesting. We've actually met in Mexico at MOSLA and looked at all the innovative things they're doing at that institution. Our company actually has a little display with an AI device there in MOSLA. But was really impressed with the organization she's leading and LTech in general and how it's transforming students' lives. So grateful to have you.
And yeah, we're very happy, and we've known Fresh and been collaborating with you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Let's stick with you, Ursula. If you can just tell us a little bit more about your journey. How did you get into education? How did you develop into kind of leading MOSLA?
Sure. Well, from all these presentations, what I think it's really interesting is that we are both psychologists in technology. So it's like when I started psychology, I never thought I would end up working in the area that I do now. Probably in education, yes, but definitely not in technology. That was not on my bingo card when I was studying. So I actually started working at Tec de Monterrey around 13, 14 years ago. I started as a teacher, a high school teacher, and I always loved creativity, and we've always been really big in applying technology to our courses at Tec de Monterrey, trying to be fast forward. So I eventually ended up working at Tec de Monterrey on the digital transformation area for getting to do better environments for our IT crews and our developers. I ended up being more into the technology, and I was like, we need to do something that has to do with technology working towards people. Everything that's emerging technology, how do we make them for actually empower our all the talent we have in at Tec de Monterrey? So I eventually started working with emerging technologies, uh, and then I ended up working with AI as one of them.
Thank you. Good stuff. Mackenzie, how about you? How did you get involved in education and then, start this amazing school?
Yeah, well, Ursula and I do have in common that we were both psychology majors, but I will tell you when I took my final exam at Stanford University, I walked out and I literally patted my head and said, I am done, because I was one of those students that hated school. I hated school from the time I was little, but I was very good at playing the school game. And so I finished school. I thought I would never walk in the doors of a school again, other than if I were picking my kids up, which eventually I sent my two daughters to our traditional public school down the street, and very quickly started noticing that there was just a real lack of ability to provide any sort of personalization to my daughter's experience. Teachers were trying as best as they could, but they were really kind of locked in to what the curriculum was and this whole world of having, 20 plus students that they had to cater to. And about halfway through my daughter's second grade year, she said to me one day, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. And I said, what do you mean? You love school? And she said, school is so boring. And I had a moment where I just realized, oh my goodness, this system is taking a kid who's tailor-made to be curious and interested and want to learn and go to school, and wiped out that passion. And I saw that she was going to go down the same road I went down. And I looked around and said, there's got to be something different that we can do here. And for me, it wasn't about going to a private school, or staying in a public school. It was really about the model. The teacher in front of the classroom model is inefficient and it's broken, and it was time to change. So 10 years ago, I decided to start my own school. And with that school, we knew that we could allow children to use adaptive apps in order to provide a more personalized, self-paced kind of learning experience. We also knew that it wouldn't take all day to sit in class to do academics. And so I had a focus of wanting to make sure we were developing life skills, things like financial literacy and entrepreneurship, public speaking skills, leadership and teamwork, communication. So fast forward 10 years, we now have about 8 different schools across Texas and Florida, and we're expanding throughout the country. And at our schools, we have our students use an AI tutor that we have developed in order to do their academics. And in about 2 hours a day, our kids are able to perform and learn twice as fast as the rest of the country does. Our classes are in the top 2% in the country. I would argue, actually, there's no other schools performing at the level that I think we are. And they do it in the morning, and then all afternoon, we provide life skills development, and we make school really fun and exciting. So I think I ended up falling into education because of the fact that I saw that it was broken and it was time for something new. And I really was one of those kind of just mama bears who wanted something better for my children and for as many kids as possible.
Thanks for that background. That's awesome. And I think that's going to really help. It's really interesting. Like you said, both started as, or both have a background in psychology, wanting to change things through technology to see how it could better education. Experienced a lot of cool things that Ursula's team is working on in at Tech. Well, let's dive in here. A year ago, the founder of an online learning company, the Khan Academy, gave a TED Talk titled "How AI Could Actually Save, Not Destroy Education." I think everyone's been concerned about AI's effect on education, but haven't realized also some of the benefits. We know technology can be good and bad, and we witness that through smartphones. There's great things with smartphones, but there's also a lot of bad things that have happened, right? And technology kind of has a life of its own a little bit. But how? Let's talk about the good things. Mackenzie, you talked about sort of this this model of adaptive personalized learning. Can you tell us more about the role of AI in kind of your K-12 learning program today? How are you guys using AI?
This is literally the most exciting time to be in education. And the next 10 years, I think, are going to be transformative. Education, the way we educate kids hasn't changed in, almost 200 years. It's been that teacher in front of the classroom model. And there wasn't really a better way to educate people. For years, learning science has told us that the best way for a child to learn is to have one-to-one mastery-based learning, but that's been impossible until recently. Now technology and AI specifically are enabling us to literally provide that one-to-one mastery-based tutor for every single child, no matter where they're at. If they're in the 10th percentile academically, or if they're in the 98th percentile academically, the tutor is able to meet them exactly where they are. And so, as I mentioned, when I started the first school 10 years ago, we were using adaptive apps, but if a kid doesn't know how to use those apps well, not efficiently, if they're topic shopping or kind of bouncing around from question to question, or not reading the explanation on a question, that can always, it can be challenging. And that's part of the reason that apps haven't been super successful in the classroom environment over the last 15 years. But what we were able to do is take this extra layer and use an AI tutor to make sure that students are efficiently moving through the material at exactly the level that they need to be, and the pace that they need to be. And so we've really been able to take that power of technology and use it to make sure kids are learning so much more efficiently. Then you add to it the power of AI to take that, little boy who hates reading, but we know that he loves the Avengers movie and he's great friends with his soccer team and he loves his grandparents on his dad's side. And then we create a story at the appropriate Lexile level for his reading capability. And suddenly that boy is now the hero of, a story about going and saving the world with his soccer teammates and then having milk and cookies, with his grandparents afterwards. And suddenly that boy is all of a sudden more interested in reading, right? Or using baseball to help teach math statistics. We can really cater interest into a child's kind of knowledge that we need to help them learn. And that's one of the things that's been so exciting. And so what we've found is through the use of AI, we're able to deliver rates where kids are, again, on average, learning more than twice as fast. We have students who are learning 8, 9, 10 times faster than kids in a traditional classroom are. And again, what's most exciting about that is it's not just for advanced students. We can hit every single student.
That's fascinating. So personalization and kind of self-guided one-to-one and progressing at their pace. So like they could, if they want to go faster, they can go faster. But if they're slower, you can kind of help them where they are, kind of progress essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other benefits of AI is it's able to really think about it like a CAT scan of a child's brain. It's able to understand, does this child need to have 15 repetitions of a concept before they really understand it, or do they only need 5?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about in a traditional classroom, the way that, we teach is we explain a concept and then we move along. And for that kid who already understands the concept, they're spending most of their time bored. And for the kid who has no idea what's going on, even after the concept's been explained, the train is moving, and that's kind of the way it is. That's why we see so much trouble with students, especially as they get older. If you're not performing well and you don't understand, your multiplication table really well, it gets really hard to do, fractions. And then it's going to be very hard to do algebra, right? And what we're able to see instead is let's cater exactly the learning that a student needs and make sure that they're always at the appropriate level of challenge. And that's what's so exciting about what AI technology has done. But the other part of this, and I'm sure we'll get into this more in detail, this isn't meant to replace the human. What it's allowing us to do is allow humans in the classroom to do what they do best, which is provide motivational and emotional support to help students kind of hit their why. So I think that's the other beautiful part of AI in the education classroom is we are transforming that role of teachers. Instead of having to grade, homework and create lesson plans and do lectures, they can really focus on getting to know each of their students, spending time with them to figure out when they're challenged, what is it that they tell themselves and how can we work with them to create a better mindset. What are the things they're excited and passionate about, and how can they incorporate that into whatever it is they're learning? And that's, I think, where we're seeing so much success, is because we've allowed the adults in our classrooms to spend that time focusing on the kid, and then allow AI to educate the child well academically.
Thank you. Ursula, what about you? What examples of kind of AI are you seeing in the universities? What are some of the things that you guys are working on?
Yes, Jeff. Well, we are also working alongside what Mackenzie is doing with adaptive learning. We also think it's crucial for every student to actually truly personalize their journey and start learning at their own pace. We have a very different setting because we have college students, and we have also a model based on competencies, developing competencies for every student. So it brings a challenge for us on how do we do this across all the different schools we have, engineering, business, humanities. Like, how do we start adapting our type of courses to this type of new learning? So we're doing some pilots with adaptive learning that have been successful so far. Also, along with Mackenzie, we found that students not only learn faster, but also they feel more committed or engaged to what they're learning. And AI now let us do that type of stuff. One of the things that faculty have is that they wish they had more time to actually spend with students. And we're working towards this tutor that will help them be like, these are the subjects you have this week. You need to do these activities. You can find the references you're looking for, the information on the library. Here are the references that you're looking for. So that's a work we have on the progress. And I do completely agree with Mackenzie that it is not a replacement for teachers, because right now we're working a lot with faculty, and we're trying to let them know this is like, AI came here to empower your talent. AI is here to take out and help you out with these activities that you may think they look very repetitive, and let you empower this whole talent that you have to motivate your students to be with them, to actually trace how they're doing. So I think AI in education, that's the big revolution that it's going to bring.
Thank you. I think one pattern I'm recognizing between these, and I'm going to relate this to much broader than education. I think the promise of AI is accelerating things, right? Accelerating our learning, augmenting what we do, whether we're the teacher, whether we're the student, the personalization aspect of that. And I really like the connection to like, oh, this, if we can speed up that aspect, we can spend more time on the human side, the connection side. And I think that there is definitely some concerns around how that impacts our human side, because we've seen how mobile apps, how smartphones have sort of changed our human behaviors. There's cons to that. But I think the promise of the good side, right? The promise of technology, and I would say this is fairly universal, is that it actually helps us be more human. And that's when it becomes, I would say, more invisible, essentially, more natural. In my conversation with some of the top roboticists in the country, they actually believe their best work will help humans be more human. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the promise of technology, that actually aids us, that augments us, that accelerates, the things that we need to do and makes it easier, because we don't really want to do robotic things. Essentially, we don't want to sit in a robotic classroom, right? Where we're all kind of like the same, right? We're all individuals that have different skills, talents, learning styles, and there's a catering to that through AI. So I love to hear from higher education, also K through 12, that kind of the overarching pattern. I think it relates to the workplace as well, right? To everyday businesses.
Absolutely. It's really allowing us to raise human intelligence and what we're able to do. And the other big thing, a lot of the people who will look at our model to begin with, and they'll say, oh my gosh, what about socialization? You have kids that are sitting on computers and they're learning. Don't they need a teacher? And it's like, well, let's think about what a traditional classroom is like, right? The kids are sitting there for 6 hours a day, generally being pretty quiet, right? learning kind of at the same pace as the rest of the peers in their class, developing, as Ursula mentioned, shame or attitudes about how they are, if they're not as smart or they're not doing as well or any of those types of things. And what we're able to do is really take this much more concentrated period of time where we're creating this very engaged learner, right? Who's getting so much more connection and impact in terms of how they're learning and learning exactly the right material. And then for us, it's freeing up the rest of the day. There's a reason we call this 2-hour learning, because our kids are just spending the morning part on academics. The rest of the day, they're getting so much richer of a socialization experience than they would in a traditional, classroom. And then that's not even beginning to think about the ways that we're then training our children to use AI as a tool, as opposed to just something that they can use to cheat with, right? Which is what a lot of traditional education is saying, oh, we don't want ChatGPT to write kids' essays for them. Let's use it as a tool. And so one example of that is we do a teamwork leadership workshop. And the test to pass for that workshop is the students get to go into an escape room. Have you guys ever done an escape room? They're so much fun. But what we do is we mic our students up, and then we use AI to analyze their intonation and their positivity ranking as they're communicating. Are they being uplifting to each other? Are they working as a team well together? And that's just one example of the way that we're using AI to help develop things like teamwork, leadership, socialization skills. And there's so many other things that we're able to leverage AI for that, again, are raising the quality of human interaction and human potential.
I love it. Ursula.
Also, and I think that what Mackenzie is doing and what we're doing at Tec de Monterrey also, it's being part of the narrative and start writing the narratives about AI. Because when you think about kids using AI, it's now part of their culture. So they're going to become adults and they're going to understand what AI does, what AI is capable for, and also how they can use it for not only their benefit, but for a social benefit, for the benefit of everyone. And they're going to go through that culture and go through school and go to work and go to the world with this new understanding of this world they're living in. And it's the same for our students. It's not only the use of AI for the sake of using AI and being on the institutional rankings and being like you're very innovative. We're giving them the tools, but we're also making them understand why is it important, and also the implication and responsibilities that you now have. Because when you're using AI, you're also making more of a big deal of our critical thinking as humans, because now you need to assess everything that an LLM gives you or anything that any AI tells you, right? You're like, is it accurate? Is it not? Like, should I ask more questions? And I used to be a philosophy teacher. And now with everything related to AI, I'm like super excited because I think philosophy is back on the room also, because you're seeing all these, that it's, it's like you tell Jeff about robotics, and it's not the robot being there, but it's also like, how are we going to interact? Like, how is it going to be this new interaction that we're going to have? And how am I going to make this even better for how this is going to enhance my humanity? Right. What does human being? It's even going back to very basic questions.
Philosophically, I think that's such an interesting aspect of what AI has a potential to do. One of the students in our high school created an AI chatbot where a parent can enter in whatever their kid is interested in, like maybe it's a cartoon, or it's the Gilmore Girls show, or it's a musical artist. And then what it would do was it would provide the parent with information about the story, and in this case, how to relate that to moral and religious values, that your kid is learning. And so, Ursula, you said you have little kids. I'm sure you're constantly hearing about cartoons or shows that you're like, wait, what is this? And it was empowering parents to be able to say, let me get to know this thing that my kid is into in pop culture, and then let me figure out how I can engage in conversation around, values that we want to instill as a family. And it's a perfect marriage of AI to really connect with, let's talk about our family philosophy. Let's think about how Taylor Swift views forgiveness, and then how, the questions that come up from that. And it was just one of many examples of where we're using AI technology to really increase that fabric of connection between people.
It seems like the more, thank you. It seems like the more at least my understanding, the deeper I go into AI, and we're pretty deep from a business perspective on multiple aspects. Is like the more we understand our own brains. We're talking about philosophy, and like I often relate like the LLM to our own brain, and I think there's something big related to this connection and kind of this evolution as we move forward into the future. We, like I started this by saying, hey, there can be pros and cons. How do we think that education will be transformed? And I would say that both of you are kind of on the front end. You are trying to implement the future now, in a sense. But as we fast forward 10 to 20 years, Mackenzie, how do you think AI will have transformed education? Not just the 2-hour learning alpha being a major national program, but how do you think it'll transform education overall?
I believe in the next 5 years, every child is going to have access to an iPad that gives them basically everything they need to learn, at their fingertips. And so one of the big questions that as the world is going to have to basically answer is, how are we going to make sure that those students then, with all of that extra time, what do we do with all that time? How are we helping to develop them? And that's one of the places that we, on a small scale, and I think much bigger, are going to work on. What are those life skills that young people need to have in order to be successful? And here's the good news about that is, a lot of times people don't always agree on how important is it to be 90th percentile or above in math. It's like, it's this, or I'm not a science person or whatever. A lot of people have debates in education about what the academic standard can be. But when you talk about what are the skills that people need to be successful in the world, there's a surprising amount of commonality with regard to that. People do believe that financial literacy is really important, that being able to deal with failure is important, that communication skills are important. And so I think the biggest thing that we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is ability to have more focus on those skills that make people ready to go out in the world and be successful, because we will get much better at efficiently and successfully educating our children. One of the absolute pure beliefs that I believe all kids are limitless, and I believe they have the potential to excel in academics in this shorter period of time. And, when we look at the last 100 years of school, that has not been the case, right? Kids have been very much underrated, and many kids get written off, right? It's like, hey, this kid's never going to be more than just an average student, or they're not going to be great. They're never going to be on a good track. And what we are seeing is that, you can take any person, right? And as long as you give them the fundamental knowledge that they can build from, they can learn, things. And we always say we believe every student can be 90th percentile or above in K through 8 Common Core. Maybe not everyone's going to go be an astrophysics major at MIT, but they can definitely get science done. And if they're able to do that, then let's go figure out how to develop all the rest of the skills. And then the other big part of this, and AI is also a great tool for this as well, is let's use this time in young people's lives to help them find the intersection of their passions and their talents. What is it that they want to do? So that when they're going through high school, they're starting to identify like, oh, I'm interested in this, or I'm really good at this. Maybe I should go work on these things. Versus, I think so many of us, myself included, I was a successful student. I graduated from Stanford. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I graduated college. And I think that's a travesty, and I never had that kind of mentorship, and I was not able to arrive at it myself to be able to understand like, okay, Mackenzie, this is what you're great at, and this is what you're interested in, and let's go figure out what are the pursuits that you could do that would match those skills with some sort of career. So that's what's really exciting to me. You also mentioned, Jeff, like, what are the cons? And I will tell you, I don't get tripped up too often in answers, but that one is a hard for me to think of, is like, what are the big cons? I think the biggest thing that's happening right now is that education is still not quite willing to let go of the traditional model. And so they're trying to help, teachers use some AI and use this to help simplify things. But a lot of times people are thinking, let's just cram more into the day. And I think the real magic is going to happen on a large scale when we allow AI to create time in a day. And really unleash kids to be able to do something. So that's why in my model, we are very pure, which is we don't do hybrid. We don't say, okay, we're going to have academic teaching, but we'll use some AI or adaptive app to support this. We very much are our adults in the classroom. We don't call them teachers. We call them guides because they are not doing academic teaching. What they are doing is helping kids learn how to become experts, how to find their own resources, how to, basically learn to learn, and then all of that social and emotional stuff that's on the other side. And I'd be curious to see what you think, Ursula, about that, because you are training, teachers, you're working with teachers on that. We're really trying to say, like, we can take teachers and we can transform their role to become guides. But in my ideal world, it doesn't include them teaching academics.
Yeah, what I think that it's going to look like on the future, I totally and completely agree with Mackenzie that it's more about the life skills. Like I think university is going to be more related to being this social, like being more social, having more empathy, all these life skills, that being more resilient, being more adaptive to change. So, but what I do think it's in 5 or 10 years, I think this is going to be like embedded in the culture. Like AI is going to be, it's not going to be the enemy. Because like maybe last year or even today, it's like, no, AI, like everything. And then everyone gets clickbait on the news and it's, no, you don't need to use this because it's the worst thing that has ever happened to us. So what we're working a lot here at Tec de Monterrey is on AI literacy, on actually teaching our faculty, teaching our students, this is AI. And AI has been here for a long time. It just has exploded like 2 years ago.
Don't you love that, Ursula? Isn't it crazy when people will be like, there's no way you did this 10 years ago. This has only been around for a year and a half. And it's like, well, actually, no, AI's been around since the 80s. It has come into the normal public sphere in the last year and a half with ChatGPT. But there has been some inklings of things that have been part of this, right, for a while. And now it is really fun, though, to see that the common person can literally use AI in their daily life to help them, no matter what their job is, no matter what it is they're doing. It can help them with thinking what to make for dinner, with show me what's in my refrigerator and let's make a dinner out of it, right? It's exciting.
Exactly. And I think that people don't realize it's been for a while part of their lives, because I'm like, you have talked to Alexa or you have talked to Siri, and guess what? They're sort of an AI, like they're in your life. So, but working towards that AI literacy of understanding what AI is, what it can do, and what are the limits of maybe what you can do with them and how they can aid your life. We're very big here at Tec de Monterrey also on making our faculty do understand a little bit of the security risks with data, for example. Because and I'm pretty sure maybe when you talk about little kids, I'm pretty sure that takes another challenge completely. Because even when we have college students, they're like, they write everything. And I'm like, no, like you don't need to give all your information. Like this is how it works with the AI. And you need to be mindful of what you put into the AI, but also mindful on what you want to get out of the AI, like understand how they're trained, not on the technical side, but understand basically how it works. So I do, I wish in 10 years we were like, I remember when I was a little kid and I watched the Jetsons, and like how Yuri Jetson had like this little assistant that is not like a virtual assistant, and it was a diary and everything. So I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, well, we don't have this little Martian that goes around with you, but we do have a lot of virtual assistants that enable us to do all this stuff that we once just dream of, and we just saw in cartoons and this type of foresight. And I do believe that AI also is going to assist us not only on the academic stuff, on making truly personalized pathways for our students, but we're also going to find a way to be more inclusive, because we can think about mental challenges to include our students, maybe students that have in any way an autism spectrum, for example, that they can help them with their social skills. So once this little threat, AI threat goes away and people understand, I think they're going to clear our minds to be like, there's so many outcomes that we can have when we see AI as an ally rather than an enemy.
We had a student who joined our school last year as a fifth grader and absolutely so shy and scared to death of any sort of public speaking. And one of the things that, that's a very important skill that we really promote at our school. And what we started the student out was one, let's think of things that you love to talk about. Like, what do you like? What are you interested in? Right. And so he came up with a topic that he loves talking about. And then we used an AI tool so that he could practice his public speaking with just the AI tool. Nobody in the room, just the AI tool. And then this AI was giving him great feedback and here's things you can do and whatever. Pretty soon he started expanding to, then he worked with a classmate and then a few. Anyways, 6 weeks into the school year, we did one of our big test to pass nights, and he spoke in front of the entire school. His parents came up to us afterwards with tears in their eyes. Like, I would never in a million years have guessed that this student could become that, confident as a public speaker in such a short amount of time. And when we asked that student, one of the things that he said is he built so much confidence knowing that what he was saying and his intonation and his projection were good from the AI tool, that then it wasn't so scary when he started opening up to a human audience. And it's just one example of where AI can give kids superpowers.
Just to riff a little bit on what you guys have been sharing, and I'm learning, so thank you. One of the things I think in our education, I love this theme of life skills. Like, hey, we're gonna have more time for life skills, and I think it's very common. I think our education often fails us with just basic life skills. It's like, oh, we're gonna do all the thinking stuff and spend all the time there, but then, the communication skills, the creative skills, the social skills, the leadership skills, the maybe parenting skills. Like all these life skills that somehow are just supposed to be given by osmosis or learning, and supposedly you might have had good parents, right? But the reality is not every kid has that experience, and we're only testing for certain things, right? We're testing if they're test smart in a sense. So I love this focus on like, can AI help us have more time for those life skills and have a guided discovery where you discover what you're good at earlier on because you have pathways to learn and kind of explore your talents. And I think that's that pattern of like not knowing what you're going to be when you come out of school because you get locked into a path or you make a decision early on something, but not having as many pathways. It's like, I really love the notion that maybe we can help kids discover what they're good at faster and then nurture that, continue to nurture that. And I also agree that, AI is going to be ubiquitous, whether we like it or not. We know probably like if half the world is using a derivative of ChatGPT right now, then they're already using it for their own education or for their support. Like I want to help my daughter, but she uses like an AI tutor to show her the math problem and talk her through the math. And so like, I'm not needed to like guide her through that anymore. I'm surprised. But it seems like whether educational institutions, have a plan or not, it's like this is moving, right? It's moving. And so how do we get ahead of it, empower it, and make it its best form in education? These are some of my thoughts, but my wife and daughter, oldest daughter, went to Zambia this last year, and I was looking at the expression of these nursing students who were given laptops, and they were just like so delighted and like, whoa, that you can touch the screen, and I'm just thinking also about how if AI has the power to personalize education, accelerate education. Mackenzie, imagine if someone had your 2-hour learning school and they've never had a computer before. They've never experienced AI and they never had internet access. But now that we're on the verge of internet access being ubiquitous, no matter where you are through things like, the satellite internet,
Yeah.
then you could drop in. There seems to be a huge leapfrog opportunity for the world's kids that aren't getting the quality education.
We did that with Ukrainian refugee students who had literally been out of school because of COVID, and then the war started. And so 2 summers ago, we sent our first group of students, high school students, over to Ukraine. And we've now onboarded over 1,000 Ukrainian refugee students who are using our 2-hour learning program in order to get education. And what's amazing about that is that those students were learning at a rate of almost 3x faster. The way I measure that is I use NWEA map testing. I'm a big fan of actually standardized assessments when you can take the results of the assessment and actually do something different for that child. Standardized tests are kind of a brutal situation, to deal with in a traditional environment where nothing really changes about that kid's education. But we're able to use these assessments to go and feed information to these students. And so we had students that were, literally not in school and didn't have a place to go to school for some amount of time, who were learning at a rate of almost 3x. Via their computer. Now, the motivation model we used on that, because as lovely as it would be if every kid was just self-driven to want to learn and improve their math and English, not always the case. We paid those students, and they were able to earn $5 a day in order to do this, and that was kind of the thing. But I totally agree with you, Jeff. I think education is going to become so much more accessible for all. And one of the things I believe is an AI tutor doesn't care if a student is white, black, or brown, doesn't care if they're rich or poor, doesn't care if they're in the 15th percentile or the 85th percentile. It's infinitely patient. And that's the beauty of AI. Is I truly believe it is going to be the common denominator that allows us to raise the floor and blow the ceiling off what is possible when it comes to educating people.
Thank you. Ursula, I've seen a lot of your team's sort of advanced work, but I love this focus on principles as well. How do we do this right, given that there's so much potential? We're talking about the potential, but there's also risks. There's biases. Tell me more about how you guys are thinking and trying to build principles to help guide, the future of one of the most successful, higher educational institutions in Mexico.
Yes, Jeff. Well, for us, that was one of the main objectives to do, to actually guide our teachers, guide our students to what it's more useful for them. It hasn't been easy because everyone, sometimes they're like, why are you not allowing me to use a certain platform or a certain type of stuff? And not also only on the banning stuff, let's say, or saying no to stuff, but also on how to use their platforms properly. Teachers, for example, were telling us, I'm going to do an example of, well, now if I ask for a poem, they're going to do it on ChatGPT. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe they can do a poem on ChatGPT, but guess what? ChatGPT can make 40 poems in an hour, So what if you ask them to make a poem of a different style, like a haiku and a Relson style poem, and they do 40 different ones. Now they need to ask different, and then you can have a conversation with them about which poem they like the most, and the poem, it's going to be about roses, the 40 of them, And so our guidelines are going towards protecting data and security, which we work with our IT and transformational digital teams. We'll work very close to our faculty departments on telling them, like, how do we train our teachers? How do we make them not only understand AI, but also on how to use AI on their classes? And we work very closely with our deans and our executive leaders to make a good strategy on where do we want to be and how fast can we be there. And we actually have a department just for artificial intelligence that it's just being on like frameworks and guidelines and how do we need to work with. And also we have an AI committee. So every month, this AI committee that it's built within our executive leaders, our deans, people from every school, our IT department, and selected teachers and sometimes students, and they meet monthly and they discuss these topics and be like, do we want to work towards this? Do we pause this project? what do we think? And we work every single area from ethics and also from finance stuff and strategy stuff. And I think that when an emerging technology arises, everyone says it's the year of AI, it's the year of the metaverse, it's the year of anything you related. And everyone starts doing stuff because you feel the imperative of putting yourself into action, like you need to do something. And I'm like, no one thinks about the strategy. No one thinks, why are you doing this? Like, are you doing for the sake of saying you use an AI tutor? Or is it something behind that you're using it? And it goes for any technology, but with AI, I think everyone, it's like, we need to do something. It doesn't matter. Like, and then it's like, my teachers are using this chat GPT for making blah, 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 blah. And you're like, but have you actually taught them? How is this going to be scalable? How does this benefit their students and also benefit them? And so we're very working towards that strategy. And I think it's very important to have everyone included in that strategy. The teachers, because if you don't have everyone on board, it's not going to work. And it's challenging, specifically on larger institutions, and if you move these to companies, it's the same thing. You need to have to get everyone on board. Just last week, we were at EDUCAUSE, which is a very important tech conference. And we saw a lot of universities, and we saw Arizona State University, and we saw the University of Florida, and we saw Penn State, and we saw a lot of universities and working with AI. But what I left when I left the event, I was very happy to see that everyone had this in mind at the end. It's like, who are we doing AI for? And I love that everyone had the same question, to be like, okay, let's do AI, but let's not forget that the person has to be at the center of it all. The person being the teacher, the person being the student, and why are you doing it? And I love that. I love seeing that higher ed, it's going towards that same thinking. And no matter where you are, no matter if you're in the US, no matter if you're in Latam, no matter if you're in Europe, we all have that at the center. It's the person. And I love that.
Great. I loved your focus on the thinking side, the why, the benefits, the risks, the audience, and how we think about this. Because I think what I loved, that original pattern you guys said of like, hey, we're going to have time for more life skills. I don't know if everyone has that in mind, like that principle. And so as we think and how we design with intent, I think, Mackenzie, clearly your program is designed with intent. It's like we shortened it, we accelerated the education so we could then go do this. But what other educational institutions really are, already have that figured out, and may not have aren't thinking through kind of the risks at the same time, where the education isn't acceleration. It's just, we're copying something from an AI source. Yeah.
Well, I do think the biggest challenge that we're going to have in getting widespread adoption is people do need to be willing to sort of blow up the way they have normally done the day. And I'll give you an example of that. I spoke to the Secretary of Education of a large country who said, we love this idea of 2-hour learning. We want to bring it to our students, and we're going to do it in an after-school program. So, how can we do this? And I said, that sounds great. We'll do it just like we did our Ukrainian refugee students, and we will use as a motivation model, we'll pay the students. And he said, oh, no. That would never, ever work in our country. We would be very against the idea of paying students. That is wrong. And I said, okay, well, what would you want to do? And he said, well, it's just going to be an after school program. And, the students will come and they will do the 2-hour learning. And I said, what kid wants to go do more school after school, right? No, that's not going to work. And he was like, well, what do you mean? It'll work. And I said, no, and I'm not going to allow you to do this program because, again, the magic isn't just in the software or the AI tutor. It's in providing this environment that enables kids to become motivated to learn. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to do this. So he calls me back about a week later and said, okay, I've got an idea. We are going to put it in the school day. And I said, oh, okay, great. What are you going to do during the school day? And he said, well, we're going to shorten lunch and we'll just take, 10 minutes off of each class and we'll put it in there. And then I said, again, you're just trying to cram more school into the school day. And if you're not willing to fundamentally change the schedule of your day, that's not going to work. Anyways, he ended up sending a team to Texas and toured one of our schools. And afterwards, they called and they said, okay, now we understand. Unfortunately, we just don't think we're going to be able to culturally move that, sell this and, move this along. And I think Ursula probably finds this individual people, when they see all of these great benefits that AI learning can enable, they're excited, but it's getting the system to change.
That's big.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Mackenzie. We call them like pioneer teachers here, which are the teachers that start and they're like, okay, give me whatever you have. Like I'm gonna be onto it. The one of the risks of AI to me, it's not losing the being scared of what's gonna happen and all these sci-fi things that we've seen all over, cinema and movies and books. I think that's one of the big challenges. And the other one, it's for me that it's also cultural. This is not my thing, It's for example, kids, Gen Alpha and everyone. Oh, AI is for them. No, AI is for everyone, and you need to understand what AI is. This is gonna seem so basic, but you need to understand AI. It's not a real person. AI has its limits.
Still artificial.
Exactly, it's still artificial, and it does. AI tells you what you have trained them to do. And that creation, it's human given. And I think that shift in cultural change, it's maybe what's going to take us a little more time.
Thank you. Anything else, just any final thoughts on the future and, things you're most excited about as we look forward, Mackenzie?
The future is bright. Like I said, I think this is the most exciting time to be in education. I think this is finally a time where families are starting to realize they have more choices. They don't just have to put their kids on the school bus that drives past their house and takes them to the nearest school. There's so many different types of models of education that are coming out. And I know for me, what I wake up every day doing is figuring out how to expand access, both in types of schools as well as cost of schools. I'd love to break into the public world, so that we can provide tuition-free schools. And we've got some really exciting things that we're going to be doing just on a homeschooling perspective, as well as things that people can download. I'm doing everything in my power to make that vision that I explained of every kid being able to learn all of their academic needs, with the power of, a phone or an iPad. And so it's exciting. I love what I get to do every day. And as I mentioned at the beginning, for being someone who hates school, growing up, I love school now. It's really fun.
That's great. Ursula, what about you? Any other thoughts on how we can design the future with intent, or anything else that you're excited about as we think about the future of education?
About the future of education, I think I'm really most excited about being part of this time period, which is like, if life is uncertain right now, it's like 100% more uncertain, everything that is happening. And for me, that I love that. I love that every day I'm going to find something new. It's going to be a new platform. It's going to be a new challenge. But I think the most exciting stuff is being part of defining what it's going to be the new roles of universities. Because we've always think about universities as this, traditional temple where you go to obtain wisdom and you see it and you get wisdom from the teacher that it's there, and they're never wrong. And now the AI comes and completely changes this. It's like, what is it going to be, university? And I would love to think the university it's going to be a huge playground. And we as a whole, all the universities need to think what is it going to be the crucial role that now we're going to have? And not only the new crucial role, but understand that we're not going to be now this omnipotent, omnipresent type of, setting. We need to change and we need to adapt. So I think that's going to be a great challenge and a great time to be alive.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you both for being here. I just all these themes of life skills, personalization, acceleration, teachers as guides, how we can have more of a playground like we're seeing Mackenzie in the 2-hour learning program and have that at the university. how that accelerates innovation. And I'm just really excited to watch what you both continue to do and to be part of the conversation. Thank you again for your insights, your passion, your leadership, and for being here on the show.
Thank you for having us, Jeff. And it's so much fun to get to meet people like Ursula who are doing big things. So I love it. Between you and me, we're going to crush K through graduate education, right? We got a lot to do. Let's go for it.
It is. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. It was a pleasure meeting Mackenzie and seeing how it all starts since they're kids, everything. And just seeing fearful people being like, let's get this thing going. That's great. And for having these conversations are like, they just spark more ideas and collaborations.
Thanks again. The Future of Podcast is brought to you by Fresh Consulting. To find out more about how we pair design and technology together to shape the future, visit us at freshconsulting.com. Make sure to search for The Future of in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And on behalf of our team here at Fresh, thank you for listening.